Have you ever paused to consider the colossal weight of history, not just the chapters etched in stone or transcribed into texts we hold so dear, but the unwritten ones, the narratives deliberately obscured, or perhaps simply lost to the relentless currents of time? What if the bedrock of our understanding, the very foundation of human civilization as we've been taught it, was built upon a grand, intricate illusion? It's a thought that gnaws at the edges of the rational mind, a whisper in the echoing chambers of our collective past, urging us to question, to peer beyond the accepted, the convenient. Imagine for a moment the dizzying prospect that every ancient artifact, every perplexing ruin, every cryptic myth woven into the fabric of cultures across the globe might not be mere coincidence or the product of nascent human imagination, but fragments of a much larger, far more astounding truth. This isn't about fringe theories peddled on obscure corners of the internet. This is about a seismic shift in perspective, a re-evaluation of our origins that demands intellectual honesty and an open mind, daring to challenge centuries of entrenched dogma. What if a pivotal, almost unthinkable entity from a forgotten era still resonates within our present, holding the keys to understanding not just the genesis of civilization, but also its cyclical demise and rebirth? For generations, the official narrative has been clear. Humanity evolved slowly, painstakingly, from rudimentary beginnings, eventually coalescing into the complex societies we recognize as ancient civilizations. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley. These cradles of civilization are celebrated as the pinnacles of early human ingenuity, born from the tireless efforts of our ancestors. Yet, beneath this well-trodden path lies a subterranean labyrinth of questions, anomalies that refuse to fit neatly into the accepted timeline. Consider the Sumerian tablets discovered in the scorching sands of what is now Iraq, detailing a pantheon of beings known as the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. Mainstream academia often dismisses these accounts as elaborate mythology, a rich tapestry of gods and heroes mirroring human struggles and aspirations. But what if these weren't mere allegories? What if they were, in fact, historical records, meticulously preserved accounts of a literal interaction between early humans and an advanced, non-terrestrial intelligence? The very idea is enough to send a chill down your spine, to make you question the cozy comfort of what you thought you knew. The truth about the Anunnaki, and specifically about a singular culminating figure often whispered about in hushed tones, the last Anunnaki, is far more intricate and far more critical to our present predicament than most could ever fathom. The story begins not in some dusty archaeological dig in the Middle East, but surprisingly in the unassuming, sun-baked landscape of the American Southwest, a place more famous for its sprawling deserts and indigenous history than for connections to ancient Mesopotamia. Dr. Elias Vance, a brilliant but notoriously unconventional archaeologist from the University of California, Berkeley, and a scholar whose reputation was as vast as his bibliography, had spent the better part of 2 decades sifting through the ruins of civilizations less understood, less celebrated by the academic establishment. He wasn't after gold or glory. He was searching for patterns, for anomalies that defied the standard explanations of cultural diffusion and independent invention. Vance, a man who preferred denim and hiking boots to tweed jackets, believed that some pieces of the human puzzle had simply been misplaced, or perhaps intentionally hidden. He harbored a quiet, almost sacrilegious suspicion that the timelines were wrong, the connections overlooked, and that a grand, unifying narrative had been fractured into disparate, digestible myths. He often joked to his students that the biggest discoveries were rarely found where everyone was looking, and sometimes they were found where no one expected them to be at all. His breakthrough, if it could be called that initially, came not from a dramatic excavation, but from the meticulous re-examination of artifacts housed in the extensive, yet often underappreciated, archives of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. Specifically, a collection of pottery shards and intricately carved stones recovered from a remote cave system in Arizona back in the 1930s. Artifacts that had been catalogued as indigenous ceremonial objects of unknown provenance. They'd sat there, gathering dust for decades, occasionally pulled out by a curious intern, but always returned to their dark, climate-controlled dormancy. Dr. Vance, however, saw something different. He noted the peculiar geometric precision, the non-native materials, and most strikingly, a recurring motif that, to his trained eye, bore an unsettling, almost impossible resemblance to symbols he'd previously encountered in obscure Sumerian texts. These weren't mere similarities, they were echoes, reverberations of a design language that should have been separated by millennia and continents. He began his solitary investigation, working under the radar, leveraging his sabbatical leave and a small, unrestricted grant he'd secured years ago for a project he vaguely described as re-evaluating pre-Columbian transoceanic contact theories. No one batted an eye. For months, Dr. Vance sequestered himself, comparing high-resolution scans of the Arizona artifacts with ancient Near Eastern iconography, using advanced pattern recognition software developed for other, less controversial archaeological pursuits. The data was undeniable, startling. The symbols, when mapped against known Sumerian cuneiform and even some early Akkadian glyphs, revealed not just stylistic parallels, but what appeared to be phonetic and ideographic correspondences. It was like finding a snippet of Latin embedded within a Navajo chant, utterly out of place, yet undeniably present. He found himself on the precipice of something monumental, something that threatened to upend the very scaffolding of historical understanding. The implications were staggering. If these symbols were indeed Sumerian, how did they come to be found in a remote Arizona cave, predating any known transoceanic voyages by thousands of years? The context, now seen through this new, startling lens, became a panorama of suppressed information. These artifacts, once deemed curiosities, now suggested a direct, sophisticated link between ancient Mesopotamian cultures and civilizations in the Americas, a connection that official archaeology adamantly denies. Dr. Vance understood the magnitude of what he was uncovering. He was not just discovering a new chapter in history, he was realizing that entire volumes had been excised, perhaps intentionally, perhaps through ignorance, leaving us with a truncated, incomplete narrative. The phrase ancient civilization began to take on a chilling new dimension for him, morphing from a textbook definition into a living, breathing enigma, far more complex and interconnected than anyone had dared to imagine. The very idea of the Anunnaki, once confined to the realm of myth or speculative fiction, now seemed to creep closer to the precipice of plausible reality, casting a long shadow over the comforting certainties of our past. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this was merely the tip of an iceberg, a solitary beacon warning of a much larger submerged truth. What he was about to uncover would challenge not just academic consensus, but perhaps the very fabric of human identity. If this has resonated with you, if it has sparked a flicker of curiosity, then you're in the right place. This channel is dedicated to unearthing the stories they don't want you to hear, the truths hidden in plain sight. So, if this caught your attention, it's because this channel delivers exactly what you need. Take a moment, hit that subscribe button, and activate the bell. Because what comes next isn't just deeper, it's a journey to the very edge of what we thought was possible. Dr. Vance's initial findings, though privately thrilling, were met with predictable skepticism, even outright derision, from the established archaeological community. He knew the drill. Presenting such radical ideas without irrefutable public-facing evidence was professional suicide. He needed more than just symbolic resemblances. He needed a smoking gun, a definitive link. He reached out to Dr. Angela Miller, a sharp-witted and fiercely traditional Sumerologist from Harvard, a scholar whose meticulous work on Akkadian texts had earned her widespread respect. He had hoped her expertise would help him dismiss the parallels, to prove him wrong, thereby allowing him to return to his comfortable, albeit less controversial research. Instead, her initial dismissal turned into a cautious interest, then an undeniable fascination. Dr. Miller, though deeply skeptical of fringe theories, possessed an academic integrity that demanded she examine evidence, no matter how outlandish its implications. She was, as they say in the academic circles, a straight shooter. No fluff, all facts. Her initial review of Vance's comparative data, conducted in the hushed, hallowed halls of Harvard's Widener Library, left her visibly shaken. The geometric patterns, the recurring stylized figures, they were indeed too similar to be dismissed as mere happenstance. The artifact that truly cemented their collaboration and deepened the mystery was a small, palm-sized stone tablet, also part of the forgotten Arizona collection. Unlike the other shards, this tablet was remarkably intact, its surface covered in a series of meticulously carved glyphs that seemed to pulse with an almost alien energy. Dr. Vance had initially overlooked it, assuming it was a later, perhaps even fraudulent addition to the collection, but Dr. Miller, with her encyclopedic knowledge of ancient languages, recognized the script immediately, albeit with a chilling twist. It was a variation of proto-cuneiform, an early form of Sumerian writing, but distinct enough to suggest either immense antiquity or a unique lineage. More perplexing was the material. It wasn't local sandstone or slate. Geological analysis, quietly commissioned by Vance, revealed it to be composed of an unidentifiable alloy, incredibly durable and resonating with an unusual low-frequency energy signature. It defied categorization, a literal anomaly in the geological record of the American Southwest. As Dr. Miller began the painstaking process of decipherment, working late nights with Vance in a secure, nondescript lab he'd rented off campus in Cambridge, the true nature of their discovery began to unfurl like a dark tapestry. The tablet spoke of beings from the heavens, of a great council of the many, and of their direct intervention in the early development of human civilization. These were not the poetic descriptions of gods in a pantheon. These were administrative records, logistical reports, and surprisingly, warnings. The language was formal, almost scientific, describing terraforming projects, resource extraction, and genetic manipulation with chilling detachment. It recounted the Anunnaki's arrival, their initial purpose on Earth, and their slow, agonizing withdrawal as their own world faced an impending cataclysm. The words Anunnaki, ancient civilization, and hidden truth became recurring motifs woven into the very fabric of the text, no longer theoretical constructs, but concrete entities described within the tablet's metallic essence. What became profoundly clear was that the tablet wasn't merely a historical record, it was a personal testament, a lament. It referred to a single individual, a watcher, designated to remain behind, a sentinel, a keeper of knowledge, tasked with a sacred duty. This was the first explicit mention of the last Anunnaki, a concept that sent shivers down their spines. The tablet detailed the watcher's agony at the departure of its kin, its immense responsibility, and its eventual decision to go into a deep slumber, leaving behind cryptic clues for future generations to discover. The reason for this extended dormancy was not immediately clear, but the tablet hinted at a cyclical nature of existence, a recurring pattern of collapse and renewal, suggesting the watcher was awaiting a specific time, a specific condition for its reawakening. What would you do if you realized that the very foundations of your species' origin were based on a history that was not just incomplete, but possibly deliberately altered or obscured? Would you dare to look beyond the comfortable narrative? The sheer implications of this small metallic tablet were enough to make seasoned academics like Vance and Miller question their sanity. This wasn't some fanciful myth. It was a coldly logical account, written by a seemingly advanced civilization, detailing their direct involvement in human evolution. It fundamentally challenged every tenet of mainstream archaeology, anthropology, and even biology. Dr. Miller, despite her initial staunch traditionalism, found herself meticulously re-examining vast swathes of Sumerian literature, looking for parallels, for corroborating evidence that she might have previously dismissed as mere poetic license. And she found it. Glimmers, fragments, seemingly throwaway lines in epic poems and administrative lists suddenly took on a profound new meaning when viewed through the lens of the Arizona tablet. The hidden truth began to unravel itself piece by painstaking piece. It suggested that the Anunnaki, while powerful and technologically advanced, were not omnipotent gods, but beings facing their own existential crises. Beings who used Earth and its burgeoning hominid population as a means to an end, albeit an end that inadvertently sparked the flame of human civilization. This was a story not of divine creation, but of strategic intervention, a cosmic experiment with unforeseen consequences. Comment below if you've ever felt like there was something more to the ancient stories, something science hasn't quite grasped. Write in the comments. This is unbelievable if you're as stunned as Vance and Miller must have been. The decipherment process, spearheaded by the tireless Dr. Miller and aided by Dr. Vance's persistent insights into anomalous patterns, became an all-consuming obsession. They soon realized they needed more specialized expertise, someone with a fresh perspective, untainted by the rigid doctrines of established academia, yet possessing an unparalleled linguistic aptitude. This led them to Maya Sharma, a brilliant young linguist, barely out of MIT, known for her groundbreaking work in computational linguistics and her uncanny ability to unravel seemingly unrelated symbolic systems. Maya, with her sharp intellect and an insatiable hunger for complex puzzles, initially dismissed their proposition as the rambling of eccentric academics. She was more interested in AI natural language processing than in ancient alien theories, a concept she found frankly quite cringy, but a brief, clandestine meeting in a secluded coffee shop in Boston over lukewarm Starbucks changed everything. When Dr. Vance cautiously presented her with the high-resolution scans of the metallic tablet and a partial transcript of Dr. Miller's decipherment, Maya's casual skepticism quickly transformed into a wide-eyed wonder. Her analytical mind, trained to spot patterns and logical inconsistencies, immediately recognized the profound sophistication of the proto-cuneiform variant, noting its mathematical precision and a structured complexity that transcended known human linguistic evolution. Maya's involvement was a game-changer. Her computational tools and her intuitive grasp of language evolution allowed them to accelerate the decipherment, unearthing layers of meaning that Dr. Miller's traditional methods alone would have taken years to untangle. The tablet, they discovered, was a compendium of knowledge, a desperate attempt by the Watcher, the last Anunnaki, to preserve not just its own history, but crucial warnings for humanity. It detailed the Anunnaki's original purpose on Earth, not as benevolent creators, but as cosmic prospectors, driven by the need for specific resources to stave off the decay of their own dying homeworld. They engineered early hominids, a species with robust physical characteristics, to serve as a labor force, gradually enhancing their cognitive abilities through controlled genetic modification. This, the tablet revealed, was the true genesis of Homo sapiens, a calculated pragmatic act, not a miraculous divine intervention. The ancient civilization that bloomed under their tutelage was not a spontaneous human achievement, but a carefully cultivated experiment designed to maximize efficiency and resource extraction. The texts went further, revealing the Anunnaki's internal struggles, the moral and ethical quandaries that arose as they watched their creations develop sentience, culture, and a burgeoning sense of self. The Council of the Many wrestled with the implications of their actions, realizing they had inadvertently set in motion a civilization that would eventually demand its own autonomy. The tablet painted a vivid, melancholic picture of a dwindling race, their numbers diminishing, their resources strained as their homeworld spiraled towards inevitable destruction. Their departure from Earth, initially seen as an abandonment, was portrayed as a reluctant necessity, a last-ditch effort to save a remnant of their species, but not all of them left. When the designated watcher chose to stay, bound by a profound sense of responsibility for the nascent human civilization they had inadvertently birthed. This was the last Anunnaki, a being tasked with observing humanity's progress, a silent guardian of secrets, awaiting a specific trigger or a predetermined evolutionary stage to reveal itself or its knowledge once more. The tablet then delved into the profound, almost chilling reason for the Watcher's extended slumber and its eventual awakening. It spoke of cycles, not just astronomical or geological cycles, but cycles of consciousness, of societal development and decay, intrinsically linked to humanity's spiritual and technological evolution. The Watcher believed that at a certain confluence of these cycles, when humanity reached a critical juncture of self-awareness and technological prowess, yet teetered on the brink of self-destruction, its re-emergence would become vital. Its purpose was not to restart civilization, but to offer a choice, to present humanity with a hidden truth that could either elevate it to a new level of existence or condemn it to repeat the catastrophic errors of previous forgotten eras. The end of ancient civilization, as it was described in the tablet, was not a singular event, but a recurring pattern, a consequence of unchecked ambition and a disconnect from fundamental cosmic principles. The tablet served as a warning, a guide, and a desperate plea from a forgotten guardian. What would it mean for humanity to discover that our entire trajectory, our very essence, was not a natural, unguided evolution, but the result of a deliberate, calculated intervention? Could we accept such a radical redefinition of ourselves? Maya, with her youthful exuberance and boundless intellectual curiosity, saw not just a historical text, but a living document, a direct communication across millennia. She often mused aloud to Vance and Miller, "This isn't just about what happened, but what could happen again." Her insights propelled their research forward, deepening their understanding of the cyclical nature of civilization's rise and fall, as described in the Anunnaki texts. The tablet contained specific data points, astronomical alignments, and geological markers, hinting at the timing of the Watcher's anticipated awakening. It wasn't arbitrary. It was calibrated, precise, interwoven with the very fabric of Earth's orbital dance and its subtle geological rhythms. They realized with a jolt that the estimated time frame for this re-emergence wasn't some distant, abstract future. It was now. The urgency of their discovery became palpable, a cold knot tightening in their stomachs. The last Anunnaki, a figure long relegated to the realm of fantastical lore, was not just a character in an ancient narrative. It was a dormant entity, potentially on the verge of stirring, and its reawakening could profoundly alter the course of human destiny. You have to wonder, doesn't it make you rethink all those ancient myths and legends we've brushed off as mere stories? Could they be fragmented memories of something far more concrete? Comment below if you also find this cyclical theory intriguing, or perhaps a bit unnerving. The implications of the Watcher's imminent reawakening were vast and terrifying, challenging not only the historical narrative, but also humanity's future. The tablets detailed a mechanism for the Watcher's slumber and re-emergence, a device of immense power and intricate design, unlike anything known to modern science. It wasn't a simple tomb or a cryogenic chamber. It was a complex system, drawing energy from telluric currents and cosmic radiation, designed to sustain the Watcher's consciousness and bodily functions over aeons. The texts described its location cryptically, using astronomical coordinates and geological markers that, once translated by Maya's algorithms, pointed to a very specific and deeply symbolic spot on Earth. It wasn't beneath a Sumerian ziggurat or an Egyptian pyramid, as popular culture might suggest. Instead, the coordinates pointed to the vast, arid plains of Nevada, deep within a mountain range, under a formation that had been revered by indigenous tribes for millennia as a place of immense spiritual power, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. It was a site almost universally dismissed by mainstream archaeologists as a natural geological anomaly, with a few insignificant indigenous pictographs. The hidden truth was truly hidden in plain sight, camouflaged by its very simplicity and the academic blind spots of traditional research. The metallic tablet described this mechanism not just as a sleeping chamber, but as a repository, a vast storehouse of Anunnaki knowledge, technology, and perhaps even their original biological samples. It was a failsafe, a final testament to their presence, and a potential key to solving humanity's most pressing existential dilemmas. But the texts also contained chilling warnings. The mechanism, if activated prematurely or improperly, could unleash unforeseen forces, disrupt Earth's delicate energy balance, or even trigger a catastrophic event similar to those that ended previous ancient civilizations. It was a double-edged sword, a promise of enlightenment coupled with the potential for annihilation. Dr. Vance, Dr. Miller, and Maya spent countless hours debating the ethics of their discovery. Was it their right, their responsibility, to seek out this mechanism, potentially awakening a being whose intentions, after millennia of solitude, might be unknowable? What would happen if this last Anunnaki was not a benevolent guardian, but a bitter, ancient entity, bent on imposing its will or even judging humanity for its failures? The texts outlined the Watcher's original mission, intricately tied to the cyclical nature of civilization's demise. It wasn't simply to observe, it was to intervene when humanity reached a critical threshold of both technological advancement and spiritual stagnation. The Anunnaki had foreseen a pattern. Civilizations would rise, driven by innovation and ambition, but invariably succumb to internal strife, environmental degradation, and a catastrophic loss of connection to the natural order. The end of ancient civilization wasn't a punishment, but a consequence, a natural purging mechanism. The Watcher's role was to offer humanity a path out of this cycle, to present them with the accumulated wisdom of an older, wiser race, but only if they were ready to receive it. If humanity was deemed unworthy or too far gone, the Watcher's intervention could take a very different, far more destructive form. The ambiguity of the warnings was perhaps the most terrifying aspect. It wasn't a clear roadmap to salvation, it was a stark choice, a cosmic crossroads. The team, armed with Maya's precise coordinates and the chilling warnings of the tablet, knew they had to act. But where to begin? How does one discreetly investigate a highly sensitive geological location in the heart of Nevada, especially one potentially housing an alien mechanism, without drawing the attention of every conspiracy theorist, government agency, and shadowy organization on the planet? The urgency of the situation pressed down on them, heavy and suffocating. The precise timing for the Watcher's awakening, as indicated by the astronomical alignments in the tablet, was just months away, coinciding with a rare lunar eclipse and a specific planetary conjunction. They were running out of time, racing against an ancient clock set by an intelligence beyond human comprehension. What would happen if they failed to reach it first? What if others, with less benevolent intentions, were already on the same path, drawn by different clues, different interpretations of the hidden truth? Have you ever thought about how much history might be repeating itself, just out of our sight? It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if we're perpetually stuck in a loop? The realization that they were running against a cosmic clock, combined with the ominous warnings of the tablet, pushed the team into a state of heightened alert. They decided a stealthy reconnaissance mission was paramount, requiring a clandestine approach that would make even the most seasoned espionage agent proud. Their plan was audacious: to use their academic credentials as a cover for a geological survey of the Nevada mountain range. Dr. Vance, leveraging his long-standing connections within various scientific societies, secured a small grant for a project focused on identifying unique mineral deposits in arid environments, a plausible enough endeavor that wouldn't raise too many eyebrows. Maya designed a portable, highly sophisticated suite of ground-penetrating radar and electromagnetic field detectors disguised within standard geological survey equipment. Dr. Miller, despite her initial apprehension about venturing into the field, provided invaluable insight into the indigenous legends surrounding the specific mountain formation, uncovering fragmented oral traditions that spoke of star people and sleeping giants, a chilling confirmation that the site's significance was deeply ingrained in human memory, albeit warped by millennia of retelling. Their initial expedition into the Nevada wilderness was fraught with tension. The stark beauty of the landscape belied a palpable sense of ancient power, a silent sentinel watching their every move. The geological survey equipment, expertly operated by Maya, began to pick up anomalous readings almost immediately as they approached the coordinates. Deep beneath the seemingly solid rock, the instruments detected an immense, highly structured anomaly resonating with the same unique energy signature as the metallic tablet. This wasn't a natural formation. It was artificial, colossal, and undeniably alien. The mechanism, as the Anunnaki texts described it, was real. What truly sent a shiver down their spines, however, was the discovery of other, fainter energy signatures in the vicinity. Signs that they were not alone. Someone else, or something else, had been here, or was currently here, probing the same anomaly. The hidden truth was perhaps not as hidden as they thought, and the urgency of their situation intensified to an almost unbearable degree. They encountered their first obstacle, not in the form of ancient guardians, but modern ones. A black, unmarked SUV, the kind favored by government agencies, appeared on a remote dirt track, its tinted windows offering no clue as to its occupants. Dr. Vance, drawing on years of experience navigating bureaucratic red tape and curious officials, managed to bluff their way through a brief, tense encounter, claiming to be environmental researchers studying bat populations. The agents, clad in crisp, nondescript uniforms, seemed skeptical, but eventually let them pass, after recording their vehicle's license plate and suggesting they stick to marked trails. The message was clear: they were being watched. The end of ancient civilization wasn't just a historical event. It was a present danger, actively monitored and perhaps controlled by forces beyond their comprehension. This was no longer a purely academic endeavor. It had become a dangerous game of cat and mouse. The team retreated, regrouping in a small rented cabin in a nearby town, the air thick with apprehension. Maya, analyzing the faint energy signatures they'd picked up, determined they belonged to a highly sophisticated, deeply entrenched surveillance network, far beyond anything a university could deploy. It was a well-funded, highly secretive operation, clearly aware of the mountain's unique properties and possibly its true contents. Dr. Miller, reviewing her historical notes, recalled hushed rumors from Cold War-era academic circles about classified government programs investigating anomalous energy sources in the American Southwest, often dismissed as paranoias fueled by desert heat. Now, those rumors coalesced into a terrifying reality. It wasn't just the Anunnaki they had to worry about. It was the forces of their own world, eager to contain, control, or perhaps even weaponize whatever lay dormant beneath the Nevada mountains. What kind of power would compel a government to operate in such secrecy for decades, all to protect a hidden truth of such magnitude? It makes you question everything you've ever been told about national security and the true priorities of those in power, doesn't it? The threat of discovery and interference from these shadowy government entities added a terrifying new layer of complexity to their already perilous mission. They realized that the hidden truth they sought was not just ancient, it was profoundly contemporary, actively suppressed by those who understood its power and potential. Dr. Vance, ever the strategist, theorized that these forces were likely aware of the Watcher's awakening cycle, perhaps even trying to manipulate it for their own ends. The metallic tablet hadn't just been a historical document, it was a living map to a dormant power, a power that could reshape the geopolitical landscape overnight. The end of ancient civilization wasn't merely a cautionary tale. It was a potential blueprint for a new world order, controlled by an alien influence, or worse, by human hands that sought to exploit it. Their next move had to be carefully calculated, combining extreme stealth with an immediate need to reach the core of the anomaly. Maya, using her advanced computational skills, devised a plan to create a series of localized electromagnetic interference fields around their target zone, hoping to temporarily blind the surveillance network. Dr. Miller, drawing on her profound knowledge of Sumerian rituals and astronomical observations, identified a narrow window of opportunity coinciding with a specific lunar phase and a subtle fluctuation in Earth's magnetic field, a cosmic breath, described in the Anunnaki texts as the optimal time for the Watcher's re-emergence. It was a brief, almost imperceptible moment, but the tablets had stressed its critical importance for safe interaction with the mechanism. Dr. Vance, with his pragmatic engineering background, focused on the logistical challenges of reaching the deep underground chamber, calculating the exact entry point and the minimal equipment required to breach the outer layers of the ancient alien structure. This wasn't like any archaeological dig he'd ever led. It was an infiltration. Under the cloak of a moonless desert night, with only the distant hum of Maya's portable jamming equipment for comfort, they initiated their plan. The desert wind howled around them, carrying the scent of sagebrush and the nervous energy of their clandestine operation. As they approached the designated entry point, a small, unassuming rock shelter, identified by Maya's reanalysis of the tablet's geological data, their instruments detected a significant spike in the anomalous energy signature. It was almost as if the mechanism was reacting to their presence, or perhaps to the approaching cosmic window. The ground beneath their feet seemed to thrum with a suppressed power, a silent heartbeat resonating from deep within the earth. Inside the rock shelter, obscured by millennia of natural erosion and cleverly disguised by ancient Anunnaki shielding technology that Maya's senses could barely penetrate, they found it, a perfectly smooth obsidian-like surface, devoid of any visible seams or markings. It was impossibly black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and radiated a faint, almost imperceptible warmth. This was the entrance, the gateway to the Watcher's chamber. Dr. Vance, with a trembling hand, placed the metallic tablet against the surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft, ethereal hum filled the air, resonating deep within their bones. The obsidian surface began to ripple like disturbed water, and faint geometric patterns of light flickered across its expanse, echoing the symbols on the tablet. Slowly, silently, a section of the wall receded inward, revealing a dark, cavernous tunnel, bathed in a soft, pulsating azure glow. They stood at the precipice of an unimaginable discovery, a portal to a truth so profound it threatened to unravel their very understanding of existence. The tunnel stretched into the darkness, its walls smooth and seamless, constructed from the same obsidian-like material. The air within was cool and still, carrying a faint, metallic scent. They knew that beyond this gateway lay the heart of the last Anunnaki's dormant chamber, the ultimate repository of a hidden truth that could either save humanity or condemn it. The urgency was no longer an abstract concept, it was a living, breathing entity, pulling them deeper into the earth, deeper into a mystery that had lain buried for millennia. What would you do, standing at the threshold of such an ancient alien power? Would your curiosity outweigh your fear? Would you dare to step into the unknown, knowing that the fate of human civilization might rest on your shoulders? It's a question that echoes through time, isn't it? As they ventured into the azure-lit tunnel, the air grew heavy, almost electric, with an energy that felt both ancient and impossibly advanced. The obsidian walls hummed softly, and the geometric patterns, now more pronounced, pulsed in rhythmic sequence, guiding their path deeper into the earth. The journey was disorienting, a descent into a world untouched by human hands for millennia, a silent testament to a civilization far beyond anything recorded in our history books. Maya, ever the pragmatist, kept a close watch on their environmental senses, confirming the air was breathable and stable, but her awe was evident in her hushed whispers and wide eyes. Dr. Miller, usually composed, found herself reaching out to touch the smooth, cool surfaces, a scholar revering a living artifact. Dr. Vance, his face etched with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, led the way, his determination a beacon in the surreal gloom. The deeper they went, the more they felt an almost gravitational pull, a silent invitation from the last Anunnaki. The tunnel opened into a vast, cavernous chamber, so immense their headlamps barely pierced its furthest reaches. At its center, bathed in a brilliant, pulsating white light that seemed to emanate from within itself, stood the mechanism. It was unlike anything they could have conceived, not a machine in the human sense, but an organic-looking structure of crystalline filaments and interwoven metallic tendrils, stretching upwards towards the unseen ceiling like a colossal living tree. At its base, nestled within a cradle of softly glowing energy, lay the last Anunnaki. It wasn't the giant humanoid figure popular culture might imagine. Instead, it was a being of pure light, a shimmering form coalesced from intricate energy patterns, gently pulsing with an inner luminescence. Its shape was vaguely reminiscent of a human, but elongated, ethereal, with no discernible features, yet radiating an undeniable presence, a profound intelligence that permeated the entire chamber. This was the Watcher, the sentinel of millennia, the living embodiment of a hidden truth. As they cautiously approached, a voice, not auditory but telepathic, resonated directly within their minds, clear and ancient, yet carrying a profound weariness. "You have arrived, as foretold. The cycle approaches its apex." The voice spoke of Earth's long history, of the rise and fall of countless ancient civilizations, not just on this planet, but across star systems. It confirmed the Anunnaki's role in humanity's genesis, not as malicious manipulators, but as pragmatic engineers, initially driven by necessity, but eventually cultivating a genuine, albeit complex affection for their burgeoning creation. The end of ancient civilization wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a recurring pattern, a consequence of species reaching a certain level of technological prowess without achieving commensurate spiritual or ethical maturity. It was a self-destruct mechanism built into the very fabric of unchecked ambition, a cosmic law. The Watcher revealed its true purpose, not to judge, but to present a choice. Its awakening was triggered by a specific set of conditions: humanity's global interconnectedness, its unparalleled technological advancement, and concurrently, its critical vulnerability to self-inflicted destruction, climate catastrophe, nuclear proliferation, societal fragmentation. The hidden truth it offered wasn't a secret technology or a new religion. It was knowledge itself, a vast repository of universal laws, of sustainable technologies, of consciousness elevation, accumulated over billions of years by countless advanced civilizations across the cosmos. It was a shortcut, a rapid acceleration of evolution, designed to bypass the usual painful cycle of destruction and rebirth. But this gift came with a profound caveat. Accepting it meant fundamentally altering human nature, shedding millennia of ingrained behaviors, greed, fear, division, and embracing a collective consciousness, a unified purpose that transcended individual desires. It was an offer of enlightenment, but one that demanded a total paradigm shift. Dr. Vance, Dr. Miller, and Maya stood transfixed, grappling with the immensity of the Watcher's revelation. This wasn't an alien invasion or a magical solution. It was a cosmic ultimatum, a profound challenge to humanity's self-perception. The Watcher concluded its telepathic communication with a final chilling statement. The choice is yours. Embrace the truth or continue the cycle. My purpose is fulfilled. The next step belongs to humanity. The white light around the Watcher intensified, then slowly began to dim, receding back into the crystalline mechanism, as if its energy had been expended in conveying this monumental truth. The air in the chamber grew still, the humming subsided, and the azure glow softened, leaving them in profound silence, burdened by an unimaginable decision. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of the most critical chapter humanity had ever faced. What would we choose to do with such a terrifying, awe-inspiring gift? The answer remains unwritten. The silence that settled upon the chamber after the Watcher's final communication was not peaceful. It was deafening, heavy with the weight of cosmic responsibility. Dr. Vance, Dr. Miller, and Maya stood frozen, each grappling with the magnitude of what they had just witnessed and heard. The last Anunnaki, this being of pure light and ancient wisdom, had not offered a simple solution, but a profound, almost terrifying choice. It wasn't a magic wand to fix all of humanity's problems, nor was it a stern judgment from on high. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's current trajectory and offering a path to fundamentally alter its destiny, a path that demanded a complete and utter re-evaluation of everything we held dear. The hidden truth was not a secret kept from humanity, but a truth that humanity had repeatedly failed to grasp, or perhaps deliberately ignored across its cyclical history. The chamber itself seemed to respond to the Watcher's dormancy, the crystalline filaments of the mechanism subtly changing their hue from a vibrant white to a soft, pulsating amber. It was as if the ancient technology had shifted from an active transmission state to a passive, observational one, awaiting humanity's response. The telepathic voice had faded, but its words echoed in their minds, clear and resonant. The concept of the end of ancient civilization was now fully understood. Not a one-time cataclysm, but a recurring consequence, a cosmic reset button pressed when a species reached an unsustainable level of imbalance. The Anunnaki, it turned out, were not gods who created humanity for worship, but engineers who inadvertently sparked sentience, then struggled with the moral implications of their creation, eventually leaving behind a guardian to offer a final chance. Their retreat from the chamber was subdued, each step heavy with the burden of their discovery. The journey back through the obsidian tunnel and out into the Nevada desert, now illuminated by the harsh pre-dawn light, felt surreal, dreamlike. The vast expanse of the American landscape, with its familiar highways and distant city lights, suddenly seemed smaller, less significant, dwarfed by the cosmic scale of the revelations they had just absorbed. The world they had known for their entire lives had fundamentally shifted, its foundations cracked by the weight of an unimaginable truth. They were no longer just archaeologists or linguists. They were accidental custodians of a secret that could either propel humanity into a golden age or accelerate its descent into another cycle of destruction. Upon returning to their remote cabin, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken questions. What next? How do you even begin to convey such a monumental truth to a world steeped in skepticism, distrust, and divisive ideologies? How do you explain the existence of the last Anunnaki, a being of pure energy, and its profound offer, without being dismissed as charlatans or lunatics? Dr. Miller, usually the voice of reason and caution, found herself grappling with the deepest ethical dilemma of her career. "We can't just keep this to ourselves," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "But who will believe us?" Maya, always the optimist, countered, "The evidence is there. The tablet, the energy signatures, the historical parallels. We have to present it meticulously, logically, undeniably." Dr. Vance, ever the strategist, knew that presenting this truth required more than just data. It required a narrative, a compelling story that could cut through the noise and resonate with the human heart. The challenge wasn't just about disclosure, it was about preparing humanity for a truth that could shatter its most cherished beliefs about origin, destiny, and its place in the universe. The Watcher's offer of accelerated evolution, of a collective consciousness, was alluring but also terrifying. It meant letting go of individual ego, of nationalistic pride, of all the constructs that defined modern human identity. It meant embracing a cosmic perspective, seeing ourselves as part of a larger, interconnected web of life in the universe. Could humanity, fractured by millennia of conflict and self-interest, truly rise to such a challenge? What would be the consequences if they chose to reject the Watcher's offer? Or worse, if they misinterpreted its intentions and misused the knowledge? The future of human civilization hung in the balance, poised at a crossroads defined by an ancient, alien intelligence. This was the ultimate cliffhanger, not just for them, but for every single person on Earth. Their immediate task was clear: to protect the knowledge, document everything, and find a way to disseminate the truth responsibly without causing widespread panic or being silenced by the very forces they had evaded in Nevada. The shadow government entities they knew were still out there, still watching, their motives ambiguous but likely rooted in control and power. The hidden truth was not just about ancient history, it was about contemporary power struggles, about who would control the narrative of humanity's future. The potential for the Watcher's message to be twisted, exploited, or suppressed was immense. This was their burden, their responsibility, to ensure that humanity, for the first time in its long, cyclical history, had the full, unvarnished truth presented to them, so they could make their own informed choice about their destiny. The story of the last Anunnaki and the cyclical end of ancient civilization is far from over. In fact, it has only just begun. The profound message from the Watcher leaves us with a stark, undeniable question. What will humanity choose? Will we embrace the daunting challenge of collective evolution, transcending our inherent divisions and reaching for a higher state of consciousness? Or will we continue down the well-worn path of self-interest and conflict, inevitably repeating the destructive cycles that have ended countless civilizations before ours, as foretold by the ancient Anunnaki? The choice is not abstract. It is immediate, pressing, and deeply personal. The hidden truth has been revealed, but its implications are still unfolding, echoing through the halls of our future. What do you think humanity will choose? What should we choose? If you've been gripped by this unfolding saga, if you've followed every twist and turn of this extraordinary revelation, then prove it. Write, "I made it to the end," in the comments below, so we know you're one of the few who dare to look beyond the veil. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more hidden truths and untold stories, and hit that like button to support the tireless work that goes into bringing these narratives to light. And for a deeper dive into the specific ancient texts and archaeological anomalies that first hinted at the Anunnaki's presence, click on the video now appearing on your screen. It's the perfect complement to what you've just witnessed. The journey continues, and your participation is crucial.